Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. We've got guests here in person, obviously, and also a number of people who are joining us virtually. So welcome, everyone from home as well. Thank you for being here. This is our 9th annual conference, so hopefully we're getting a little better every year, and we appreciate the people who are joining year after year. And we also have a number of new people here this year as well. So welcome, and hopefully we are putting on a valuable event for everyone, and we will go ahead and get started. Okay, so I'm going to read the disclosure, regulatory disclosure. This new capital presentation is being made available for educational purposes only and should not be used for any other purpose. The information presented does not constitute and should not be construed as an offering of advisory services or an offer to sell or solicitation to buy any securities, related financial instruments, financial services, or other services in any jurisdiction. Past investment performance is not an indication of future results. Wherever there is the potential for profit, there is also the possibility of loss. Certain information contained herein concerning economic trends and performance is based on or derived from information provided by independent third-party sources. New Capital believes that the sources from which such information have been obtained are reliable. However, we cannot guarantee the accuracy of such information and have not independently audited these sources. I believe that is it, and Leonard is going to walk us through the agenda.
Do I need, yeah. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to make a few remarks here and go through our polls. So those of you who took those polls, thank you. And I'm going to show you what last year's poll results were and this year's poll results. So we'll know how did you all do on last year's poll, right? How accurate are you? And of course, we're very much market-based investors. We very much believe in the passive approach to investing. And so your opinions are very valid as a market. Mira Pandit of JP Morgan is going to be talking about, she calls it investing against the wall of worry. JP Morgan's one of our major business partners. That's the asset management side of JP Morgan, the fund side of JP Morgan. And they also put out a very important publication called The Guide to the Markets. You can get it if you want, and we rely heavily on it, and many of the slides I'll use come from that. And Mira works on The Guide to the Markets, and she's going to talk more about sort of macroeconomic things, inflation, where we at in inflation, where we at in the Federal Reserve, and JP Morgan has very good insight into those things. I'm going to talk at 11 o'clock about market valuations, and also talk about what's gone on in the bond market. Who's interested in that? Who's been seeing anything about interest rates and the 10-year Treasury bond? So I'm going to get kind of deep in the weeds on that to show you what has happened there and why. And then we're going to give you lunch for those of you who are here, and those of you who are at home, you'll have to go to the refrigerator. And 12:30, we're going to be talking about power of attorney. It's such an important issue, and yet people just gloss over it. Do I need it? Yeah, I have it. What is it? And so Tanya Knauth and Kevin Horner are going to, two estate attorneys here in Houston, are going to be talking to us in depth about that. And it's going to be a panel. I'm going to moderate that. And this is something everybody needs to know about. If you're 18 years old, you need to know about it. And yet not enough people know about it. So. And then at 1:15, we're going to do our usual presentation, the four of us, about new initiatives at the company, whether it's new technology, new services, and orient you to those as well. Okay, so, and then we'll wrap up around 2, hopefully, and if there are any following or concluding questions and answers, we can take them then. In 2022, we asked a year ago, who will control Congress after the upcoming midterm elections, right? So the conference was October of last year, and Election Day would be shortly after that. And the plurality of votes were for a Republican House and a Democratic Senate. And that is what we got. So good job on that. We asked if Donald Trump would be indicted. And look at that. Again, you all were correct about that. So pretty good predictive capabilities. How will the war in Ukraine conclude? Pretty good number of you thought it would be victory for Ukraine, but a stalemate looks like what we have, and most of you picked that it would be a stalemate. Is U.S. democracy in grave danger of ending? No. We had quite a number who said yes, and most of you said maybe. Over the next 10 years, stocks will most closely return each year on average. 15 of you said about 5%. We're up about 10% this year, or since that time. Actually, we're up about 20% since that time. But again, we'll see what happens over the long term. Bonds will most closely return each year on average 2%. Actually, since that time, bonds have taken it on the chin. But not all bonds, and I'm going to talk to you about that. Not all bonds have taken it on the chin. What will the price of oil be most closely in a year? You all got that right. We're somewhere around, what, 90 now? Chip, you probably know where it's at, about 90. And so 100 was the closest to 90, and so most of you got that right. Inflation will likely run at what percent over the next year? 8 of you picked 4 to 5%, and 8 of you picked 6 to 7%, and we're running now, I think, between 3 and 4% is what the most recent prints. But over the past year, we've run around 5%. So I'd say pretty good prediction on that. We certainly have not gotten back to the 2 to 3% that the Fed wants to get to. So you all were basically right. This was high. This was where we were in the heat of the inflation back in 2022. But we're past that now. The 10-year Treasury bond will likely yield how much in a year? A plurality of you, 7 of you, picked 3%. Some of you picked 2%, right? But boy, who knows where we are now on the 10-year? 5%. This is really the only one that people were not exactly right about. Just that one. So that's been the big surprise, in other words. Mortgage rates will do what over the next year? Remain level. Have they remained level? 9 of you thought they would rise, so that's a pretty good number. And those of you who thought they would rise, boy, have they risen. My next vehicle will be I put internal combustion, gasoline-powered, 3. 12 of you interested in hybrids and 8 in electric vehicles. This is from last year? Okay. So we asked that question again this year to see how it's changed. Okay, here's what you said just this week. How long will it take to elect a Speaker of the House? I should have put 1 day because it was 1 day. Good morning. Come on in, gentlemen. It took about a day. It didn't take a week, didn't take a month, 3 months, 6 months. Somebody thought a year. Maybe that would have been better. I don't know. Will Donald Trump be convicted, right? Last year we asked if he would be indicted. This year we're asking if he would be convicted. And 27 votes that he would be convicted in Georgia, meaning that it seems like the respondents think that's the strongest case. That's my interpretation of that answer. Next strongest case would be the one in the state of New York. That would be the porn star case, right? The one in New York. And then in federal court, the federal case, 15 of you. And 2 of you think no, there'll be no convictions at all. We'll see. How will the war in Ukraine conclude? Far more of you now see that as a stalemate on percentage-wise than last year. No surprise. Will Israel launch a ground attack into Gaza? 27, yes. Overwhelming amount think that that's an event that's going to occur. 2 of you think no, it somehow will not occur. What will global stocks return over the next year? 16 of you, 5%. Nobody thinks 10% or more. A few of you think we'll see losses or a flat market over the next year. Bonds over the next year. Many of you think that bonds will return about 3% over the next year. We'll see next year. 10-year Treasury bond will yield how much in a year? In other words, if the yield is 5% right now, what will the yield on the 10-year be a year from now? And 14 of you, most of you, think it'll be 3%. And I told JC when I saw this, we better go buy 10-year bonds. And I'm going to show you in my presentation why, if this is what is going to happen, then we better buy long-term bonds for you, right? Because if that's the case, that implies a 20% return on the 10-year bond, right? If the interest rate on the bond drops from 5 to 3% and the duration on the bond is 10 and it's a 10-year bond, that implies that the most of you here see 20% gains for the 10-year Treasury bond, 20%. And we ought to just go buy hand over fist. I don't know that we're going to see 3%. I have my doubts about it, but it's possible. What will the price of oil be? Again, it's going to, look at that. It's not going much of anywhere. Chip, what do you think?
I agree with that.
Yep. Chip's in the business. Inflation will likely run at what percent over the next year? 4%. So most of you think the Fed is not going to be able to, or I don't even just want to put it on the Fed. It's not, the Fed has an enormous amount of control over it, but we have a strong economy right now. Most of you don't see the economy backing off to a point where we'll see inflation in the 2 to 3% area, and unemployment. Most of you think we'll see 3%, which is about where it is now. So you all see basically continued strong jobs picture a year from now. Will we enter a recession? Look at that. What was a big worry about a year ago, that we were going to see a recession, most of you say nope. I mean, it's overwhelming that you all do not see a recession occurring. 6 of you say yes. And again, my next vehicle will be, it looks pretty much like last year, but it looks maybe a little stronger, does it not, than it did last year? That we are in the process of a transition in buying habits for automobiles. But look at what the top category is by a hair is hybrids. Most people, not most, but a plurality say that they would like a car that has both electric and gas capabilities, and a very strong amount of you are going to purchase an all-electric vehicle. But look at that, gasoline-powered vehicles look to be a thing of the past, at least among this group. I'm actively considering installing or have already installed solar panels on my house. You may know that there is a very significant tax credit. I think it's 30% tax credit for money spent to put solar panels on your home, which means the federal government pays for 30% of the bill. And 12 of you are either actively considering or have already installed solar panels on your home. 17 are not thinking about it or haven't done it, but that's getting pretty close to 50-50. And that says to me that 30% tax credit's got a pretty strong say in the matter.